Welcome to our QPR Preview Show ahead of the clash at Loftus Road between QPR and promotion chasing Sheffield United, the first of four tricky matches for QPR as we enter March. And sadly, we come into this fixture after a 2-1 defeat away at Portsmouth as Pompey completed a first league double over QPR in 63 years. Could we have any complaints though, Dave?
Yeah, not really. I didn't think we deserved anything out of the game. I thought at the Derby game a week before, you probably had four or five players had their best game of the season for us, and we got that big win from it. And at Portsmouth, you had like the likes of Cook, Dunn, Frey, Smith, Varane, Field, all probably had their worst game of the season for us. And if you have that many players below their best, you're not going to get a lot. And the only positive you could really take from it, and it's grasping at straws really, is that they stayed in the game and they almost got a point at the end. I don't think they deserve one, but they almost got one at the end. So there's still that team spirit there. They're not giving up, but yeah, it wasn't a good performance, and Portsmouth fully deserved to win.
Yeah, the spine of our team, you're right, just didn't really perform, did it? And 2-1 perhaps flattered QPR in the end.
Yeah,
Although if Alfie Lloyd took his chance before our goal, maybe we could have stolen a point. So I'm holding on to the hope that it's a good sign that when no QPR player is probably better than a 5 or 6 out of 10, we were still in the match. And I don't think we complain at all. Portsmouth, they had another goal disallowed, didn't they? Which was
yeah.
dubious. Our old pal Andre Dozzell had an absolute sitter he somehow missed. So we were lucky to actually get to the last 20 minutes of the game, still in the fight to try and get something. Two goals we conceded, really frustrating because just so preventable, naive, poor defending. But the whole game, Portsmouth basically bullied us a bit, didn't they? They imposed their game on us rather than it being the other way around, which does seem to be a bit of a recurring pattern away from home. And is Marty Cifuentes due some criticism for taking too long to make his subs?
Yeah, it's happened a few times recently. He did take far too long at Portsmouth. It was obvious he needed to make changes. It just wasn't working, especially in midfield. But yeah, it took so long, and by the time he did bring on like Lloyd and Yang come on, we looked a lot better when he made them changes. But they really should have been 10, 15 minutes earlier. And he does seem to have done that a few times recently. I know at Leicester, I know we got a bit of a hiding in the end, but he waited far too long to do anything in that game, and he's done it a few times. It was a little bit frustrating at the weekend.
Yeah, as soon as we were 2-0 down, you thought he'd have the subs on, but there was 17 minutes between Portsmouth's second goal and
Mm.
our first sub. So just wasted time. Genuinely not sure what he was waiting for or what he was expecting to change. And it's especially annoying because you're right, within 6 minutes of us making the subs, we then had a goal back and it was game on. It's one of those questions that I wish we could ask him, but obviously the official channels were never going to go down that route of pressing him with that type of question. Another frustration is a game again where we struggled when we had more possession. Any reason why you can see why this keeps happening?
I thought in this game in particular, I just thought Portsmouth really pressed us well. We had a lot of the ball, but we just didn't really have anywhere to go with it, and we were in our own half a lot, similar to a lot to the first half of the season. We had a lot of position in our own half, but we didn't really do a lot in their half, and until the last 10, 15 minutes when we had them under pressure a bit. But you know, we do weirdly seem better when we haven't got the ball as much. When we was on that run where we were a bit more stodgy and probably difficult to beat, the results were better. But I do get why we've got to a stage where Cifuentes is trying to get us more dominant on the ball, where results are not vital. It'd be nice if we could get to the playoffs, but it is a bit of a unlikely dream, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, most of our wins since he took over, and it's a very high percentage of coming games when we have less possession.
Mm.
Millwall away, we had 57% possession and we lost. Sheffield Wednesday at home, 61% and we lost. Whereas when Derby, we had less than 50% and we win 4-0. And I know there's some exceptions to the rule, but it's just the general pattern since he took over. And I think it's once we start passing it around slowly at the back, it's all about where the possession is. It doesn't work, like you just said, at the start of the season. It's all in our own half. We don't hurt teams. When we get the ball into the opposition half quickly into our attacking quartet, we're definitely a better side. It's about where we have the possession. I think that's more important. And maybe it's why we shouldn't fear maybe these upcoming games because they're going to be against teams that when we do get the ball, they're going to leave spaces for us to maybe try and attack and they're going to have more of the ball themselves. Now, before we get on to Sheffield United, the main news off the pitch this week for QPR was the release of the annual accounts for last season, 2023-24. Always complicated to work them out. We knew it was a bit of a season of cutbacks because it's always about the 3-year rolling losses, which cannot exceed 39 million. QPR had the lower 4 million losses, our best one we'd had for many years from 2020-21 when we sold Aberieze dropping off the balance. So it needed to be much lower losses than the 24 million and 20 million of the previous two seasons. It ended up as a £13.5 million loss. So still a sizable loss for the club, but it's almost half what it was 2 years ago. And the club has done well in a number of areas. Revenues are up in no small part due to sellout crowds. Commercial sales are up. Wages are down 14% from 2 years ago. But the overall losses for the 3 years are around 57 million. We're always led to believe there's some allowable expenses and deductions of around 4 to 5 million that we can take off after that. But even at the upper end of that, let's say 5 million, so take off 15 million, we'd still be over. So we must have got under somehow, and we've had no transfer embargo in January, so we must have been under, but it must have been incredibly, incredibly tight. What did you make of the accounts, Dave, when you saw them?
Yeah, I mean, we knew it was going to be tight because of how it was last season. You saw them; they were sponsoring everything they could find in the stadium, and they, just to try and get more revenue in. You saw with a lot of the signings they made, like with Cook, Colback, Frey, and Anderson, they give them quite low wages the first year and bumped them up the second year to try and stay under the line. To be fair, they've done well to get under the line. I didn't think they'd do it last year. I thought just the position they're in, what they'd spent the previous years, that they were going to fall foul of this. But they've done well, and 30 million's a hell of a lot of money to lose, isn't it? You shouldn't be celebrating that, but it's a lot better than it was. The concern is what this year's going to look like, because I say them wages are going to go up. We've offered a lot of new contracts. But I look at the bit at the end of the accounts, we've spent a lot of money last summer, like around 8-9 million on the players we signed last summer, which is more than we've spent in years. And let's be honest, the ones we spent money on haven't been the success stories of they. It was people that were already here. So yeah, it's going to be interesting what happens this summer, because there's going to be a big change again. A lot of players out of contract and leave a lot of signings. And is their money going to be there for us this summer? I think we might face another difficult year next year with trying to balance the books unless we sell someone.
Yeah, I mean, the current season, we get around to next year with the 3 years, the 24 million losses dropping off. So that explains
Yeah,
why we could spend more this season, both on players and wages. TV money's also higher. Attendances have been strong again. But I agree, it's unlikely we can spend quite as much as we did last summer, this coming summer, unless everyone keeps pointing it to it's a Berriese gets sold or we get
yeah.
somebody interested in one of our own players. It's definitely the area that we need to keep improving on. Back on the pitch, then, this tough run of fixtures for the first fortnight of March starts at home to second place Sheffield United. In the first meeting this season, QPR somehow drew 2-2 after being 2-0 down. But coming into this clash, neither side has drawn in 2025. Both sides, oddly, are 10 league games without a draw. Sheffield United, they head to Loftus Road after losing 3-1 at home to Leeds in the Monday night battle between the top two. Does that make them a wounded animal heading to London?
Oh yeah, definitely. And they were unlucky to lose that 1-3-1. That was a really close game, and I thought they played quite well in the game. Um, they're going to be desperate for points. They've got to try and keep that lead over Burnley. And then they've still got to play Burnley before the end of the season. So it's going to be very tight for them. And you know, this is we've seen this for a while. March is a tough run for us, but it's also an opportunity. Let's measure ourselves against these top sides. Sheffield United are going to be in the top three at the end of the season, quite possibly promoted. And let's see if we can match them. On paper, they're miles better team than us. Let's be honest, but on our day, I think we can give anyone a game in this league.
Yeah, I think it is the point of interest for these matches is to see how we pair up against the teams. I mean, Sheffield United last lost back-to-back games in October when they also lost to Leeds, then followed that up by going to Middlesbrough and losing. So maybe they are vulnerable. There's also a bit of pressure on them now with Burnley only 2 points behind and Burnley never conceding a goal. So this is a big match for them to respond straight away. Worth remembering as well, they had a 2 point deduction at the start of the season. Without that narrow looking 2 point gap over Burnley would obviously be 4 points. And that's a big swing at this stage of the season. Do you think they will go up automatically?
Oh, it's really hard to call up. I think Burnley's defence, I think, might get them over the line. That they just don't concede goals, and now they've added a bit more attacking threat. I think they might just pip Sheffield United. But even if they end up missing out and getting the playoffs, you'd probably fancy him against most of the teams in the playoffs, Sheffield United. So I think they've got a very good chance of going up.
Yeah, I think they'll go up, but I think it's going to be Burnley who go up automatically. Like you say, Burnley's defense. Unfortunately, they've taken Paddy Kenny's like clean sheet record away, haven't they? Which was the all-time second tier, I think, most clean sheets. But they've taken that probably all in one go. The amount of clean sheets they keep getting. So they're basically guaranteeing themselves points every week. Whereas Sheffield United, they are beatable. They've lost 2 of the last 6, 3 of 10. They lost 3-0 to Hull in a shock result, but it shows that you can get at them. So there's a glimmer of hope, maybe. I'm just maybe clutching at straws, especially because, having said that, against Leeds, off the bench, they were bringing on the likes of Gustavo Hamer, Tom Cannon, Kiefer Moore. You've got Rob Holding and Sam McCallum, who were your unused subs. It's an embarrassment of riches we could only dream of, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it's ridiculous, and that's the advantage you get if you're coming down from the Premier League with the parachute payment money. You know, you can spend money and acquire a squad that's basically too good for this league, but nowhere near good enough for the one they could be going into. It's, you know, they're in a kind of Sheffield United are in a loop with a probably with what Leeds are going to be, and they go up and they go down again. We're seeing it this year with Ipswich and Southampton, and that they're coming back again. Um, you know, they're a really good side though. They, you know, like you say, they got Tom Cannon. I thought was brilliant against us for Stoke earlier in the season, and can't even get in this team. You know, I mean, he'd be first choice if he played for us, wouldn't he?
Yeah, it's a good one for you to bring up because they bought him for £10 million. And on top of him, they also bought in Ben Brereton Diaz on loan. So
Yeah.
it shows you what QPR are competing against in the transfer market. So when people say sign a striker, it's easier said than done, isn't it? And at the other end of the pitch, their defensive record would probably get more headlines if it wasn't for Burnley's clean sheet record. They're a strong team, and despite losing to Leeds, they'd won 4 in a row prior to that. I saw them like then the other night, like yourself, very physical, full of pace and intensity. We're going to have to try and match that all over the pitch. For QPR, 12 games left, 14 points above the bottom 3, 7 off the top 6. They're not already dead rubbers, are they? Or are you still holding that hope we can push higher?
I think the way the league is at the minute, one win can put you back in the mix. We've lost one game and now everyone's saying we're out of it. We can if we get a couple of wins the next few weeks, you never know. We could be back in the mix, but in all likelihood, we're going to finish around where we are now. I mean, I, it's going to take a hell of an effort to make the top 6, you know. And even if we did, I don't think we'd actually go up through the playoffs. But you know, every game should matter. You know, we've got really good home form in a minute. You know, let's try and maintain that. And like I say, it's a chance to measure ourselves against one of the best in the league. You know, let's see how good we are. For individual players, you think this is a shop window time. This is a team that's going to have a lot of money to spend if they go up. You know, they were after Jimmy Dunn a couple of weeks ago, and they so they've obviously been looking at us, and it's an opportunity for us.
Yeah, I think we can expect Jimmy Dunn to put in a top performance on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah,
But yeah, for Cooper, we always seem to get 3 or 4 points away from being right in the mix, and then we lose a game. And at the end of the day, a mid-table side is probably what we are. And the next 12 games will be all about building for next season. I expect Marty to start rotating more, trying players maybe in a few different roles. And it's going to be the last chance for a few of them to prove that they can be here next season. If we look at possible changes in the lineup for this match, you got Steve Cook made a big mistake for Portsmouth's second goal, telegraph pass. He's looked ropey anyway, hasn't he, at best since coming back from his injury. Is it time for Liam Morrison?
if he's fit, I'd maybe look to make that change. I don't think Cook's been playing well at all since coming back from injuries. You know, I thought he was brilliant before that, but he just hasn't looked the same player. And you know, maybe it is time to make that change. You know, Morrison looked really good before the latest injury. So yeah, be good chance for him to come in. And you got to think Cook's out of contract, I think, at the end of the summer. So you know, you're saying we need to build for next year. Yeah, they do need to give these players a chance at some point.
Yeah, I personally would make the change, but I doubt Marty will himself in
Mm.
reality, dropping his captain. But there's no doubting Steve Cook rushed himself back. He's made mistakes and cost us goals in each of his past 2 away games. And let's also remember that Liam Morrison had an incredible record when he played, and he arguably would still be in the team if it wasn't for his own
Yeah.
injury. I'd like to see him back in the team sooner rather than later. And this for me feels like a match when a Jack Colback type of game. He can see him. Can you see him starting though? And how would you see Marty shaping up the midfield?
Yeah, it's been interesting in midfield because he's played the two holders with Chair more of a free role, and at home we've been really good and away not so good. So I think in these sort of games you need to be a bit more physical. What's worked for us was earlier in the season was the Field, Varane, and Morgan all playing. You know, a lot of legs, a lot of running in there, a lot of hard work. You know, good defensively, and I think he'll go with that again. wouldn't be surprised if Colback comes in for Field because I thought Field was really poor last week, and Colback actually improved us when he come on. But it'll be between those, I think. I think Chair will either be moved out wide or left out.
Yeah, I really feel we need Colback's composure and his grittiness in there. I honestly can't see Marty dropping Sam Field, though, although I probably would
Then
myself.
maybe,
It's
yeah.
one of those again where he's almost first name on his team sheet every single week. So I'm probably expecting Field, Colback, and maybe Morgan to come into the centre with Field back out to the left in place of Koki Saito. On the other flank, though, will it be Yang ahead of Smith? What do you think?
I think he'll go with Smith again, but I think Yang's got a good case to be starting. He's done well. The lot was really good against Derby and was good off the bench last week. And Smith's dropped a little bit recently. I think Cifuentes will go with Smith again. It's just that he does tend to go with experience, especially in these sort of games. And it's a bit more for the defensively. They're going to be quite strong out wide as well. So Smith does give a bit more protection. So I think he'll start with him, and then Yang will be on last half hour.
Yeah, I think for most home games we would have maybe anticipated it being Yang, but because of the attacking options Sheffield United have,
Mm.
this opponent specifically probably does call for Paul Smith for the extra defensive work he gives. Up front, Michael Frey had one of his off days at Portsmouth, but would you expect him to keep his place?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he was poor. I think he's been really good at home and not so good away, like a few of the players. So wonder if he'll start this one and then maybe away from home you start Lloyd, maybe away from home now for a bit more pace on the break. But I definitely start him at home. He's scoring goals at home as well, so I think he's an obvious choice up there.
Yeah, he's a different player at Loftus Road for whatever
Yeah,
reason, isn't it? But it surely has to be the focus when we look for a new striker in the summer of someone who can play away from Loftus Road.
yeah, my help.
Um,
Yeah,
with Kader Dembele back after 4 months out, he gives us another option off the bench now. But his return meant Nicholas Madsen wasn't even on the bench. And you kind of alluded to it in the account discussion before that he's probably cost us at least £3 or £4 million, it looks like. But can you see him returning to the side or even the bench?
no, I mean, honestly, he's been a bit of a disastrous signing. I think what they were expecting of him was like Sander Berge, who used to play for Sheffield United, that sort of big, strong midfield player who's going to dominate on the ball, and we've got nothing like that with him. I think the guy's got ability, and will probably work elsewhere. But as a Championship player, I just don't think this league suits him. And hopefully, we can reclaim some of the money in the summer, and let him move on, and hopefully thrive somewhere else. I just don't see him being involved in a minute. There's too many other options in midfield.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even when he plays well, he's still quite slow and his passing might be
Mm.
neat and tidy, but he slows the pace of the game down. It doesn't really fit with the attacking impetus we're trying to play with now with speedy wingers. But for him to not even be on the bench, it's quite a message he's been sent, isn't it? And
Yeah.
he's even less likely to make the bench once Lucas Anderson is back too. So interesting, like you say, to see if we can recoup anything in the summer, but no doubt in the move has not worked out for either party. Finishing with our predictions then, Sheffield United have the best away record in the division. They've won 10 out of 17, but QPR have won 6 of the last 7 at Loftus Road. What are you predicting?
So it should be an away win. They should beat us, but I'm going to go with a draw. I think we're both going to get our first draw of 2025 at the weekend. You know, I just think at home we're a different team, and I think we can give them a game at the weekend. So maybe 1-1.
Yeah, I could be miles off saying this, but I will have to see how the match plans out. But I feel the first goal is absolutely huge.
Yeah.
A bit like Sheffield Wednesday, we started okay in that game, but didn't take our chances and paid the price as they grew into the game. If we can get ahead here, it's going to be another sellout crowd, get the crowd into it, put Sheffield United on the back foot because they're going to be nervous. We just discussed they need to keep winning now to keep Burnley at bay. So I sense we just need that first goal. If they get it, though, I can't see anything other than them winning. I suspect overall, if I had to make a prediction, I'm going to go for 2 or 3-1 to Sheffield United because the strength they have in depth we've discussed as well. But like you said, I really hope we can give them a good game. And it's another week ahead without a midweek match. It's West Brom away next Saturday, next up for QPR. Dave and I will be back to preview that one as usual. We really appreciate you watching and commenting each week. And come on, you Ars.